The shotgun felt impossibly heavy in Anna's hands. Through the cabin window, she could see him. Vernon Caldwell standing at the tree line watching her barn burn, watching everything she'd fought for turn to ash. Her finger tightened on the trigger. Anna, no, Jack's voice cut through the rage. But she'd already made her choice. 3 days ago, she'd been a desperate widow begging strangers to take her dying children. Now she was ready to kill the man who'd hunted her across state lines. The question was, how did a mail-order bride who never met her groom end up here standing between a cowboy's love and a devil's vengeance? It started with a lie, a blizzard and a promise no man should have been able to keep. 3 days from now, she would stand before an altar with a man she barely knew wearing a borrowed wedding dress that once belonged to a dead girl. But right now, kneeling in the snow at Blackthorn Ridge Station, Anna Hayes wasn't thinking about weddings. She was thinking about how to keep her children from being taken away. The man she'd written letters to for 6 months, rancher William Garrett, who'd promised to marry her, had died 3 weeks ago. Pneumonia. Nobody in this town knew she existed, and the law here was clear as ice. Women without a sponsor had 3 days to leave. But she had no money for a train ticket home. And the man from Philadelphia, the one she'd been running from, had just stepped off the afternoon train. The wind screamed across the platform like something alive and angry. Anna pressed her daughter and son closer, feeling their small bodies trembling through layers of thin wool that were never meant for Montana winter. Lily's lips had gone blue. Ben's breathing came shallow and quick, each exhale a tiny cloud that dissipated into the gathering storm. Station Master Hutchins stood before her hat in weathered hands, eyes fixed somewhere over her left shoulder. He was a kind man, she could tell, the kind who hated what he had to say. Mrs. Hayes, I am truly sorry, but Mr. Garrett passed on. There's nobody here responsible for you. Anna tried to speak. Her throat had closed up tight. She managed one word. When, 3 weeks back, caught pneumonia after the December storm. Doc Hewitt tried everything, but... Hutchins shook his head. Nobody knew you were coming, ma'am. Mr. Garrett never mentioned a bride. Because I never told him about the children, Anna thought. The shame burned hotter than the cold. Lily's small hand squeezed Anna's fingers. At 7 years old, the girl had learned to be silent when adults spoke of terrible things. Ben, only 5, didn't understand yet. He pressed his face into Anna's skirt, shivering so hard his teeth chattered. The law in Blackthorn is clear, Mrs. Hayes. Hutchins wouldn't meet her eyes. Women without sponsorship got 3 days to secure passage out or employment. After that, he trailed off. After that, what, Mrs. Crawford runs the boarding house. She'll take you on as kitchen help. 6 months' labor ought to cover room and board for you. As for the children, well, his voice got quieter. The orphan train comes through next month. It's the kindest option, really. Good families out east looking for workers. They'd be fed sheltered. The world tilted sideways. Anna's vision went white at the edges. You want to take my children. Not want to, ma'am. It's just how things are done when a woman can't provide. Anna looked down at Lily and Ben. Her daughter's eyes were too old for 7, filled with the kind of understanding that comes from loss. Ben's face was flushed with fever, his small body radiating heat even in the freezing air. He'd been sick since they boarded the train in Philadelphia 4 days ago, getting worse every mile west. She'd sold everything. Her mother's wedding ring, the silver candlesticks David had inherited from his grandmother, even the coat he'd worn when they married. $230 total. The train tickets west had cost $180. She had $50 left. Not enough to go back. Not enough to go forward. Not enough to keep her children. Anna sank to her knees in the snow, pulling Lily and Ben into her arms. She whispered promises she didn't believe any more words that tasted like lies. Behind Hutchins, the other passengers from the afternoon train dispersed into the town. Families collected by waiting wagons. Businessmen heading to the hotel. And one man who stood very still on the platform, watching her with eyes like winter itself. Vernon Caldwell. He wore an expensive coat, black wool with a fur collar that screamed wealth and civilization. At 45, he still carried himself like the Philadelphia lawyer he'd been before discovering that debt collection paid better than justice. His face was handsome in a cold way, features sharp and precise as a blade. He smiled when their eyes met, not a kind smile, a proprietary one. Anna stood slowly positioning herself between Caldwell and her children. Mrs. Hayes, his voice carried across the platform, cultured and smooth. After all this time, I finally found you. Hutchins looked between them, confusion crossing his face. You two know each other. Mrs. Hayes and I have business in Philadelphia. Caldwell approached with measured steps, boots crunching in fresh snow. Business she attempted to avoid by fleeing across state lines. I don't know what you're talking about, Anna said. The lie came out weak, unconvincing, even to her own ears. Caldwell reached into his coat and withdrew a leather folder. From it, he produced papers. Official-looking documents with seals and signatures. Your late husband, David Hayes, borrowed $200 from my lending institution to open his bookshop. When he died 18 months ago, the debt transferred to you. With accumulated interest, you currently owe $350. Hutchins took the papers, squinting at them in the gray afternoon light. These look legal, ma'am. The debt was $200, Anna said. Her hands were shaking. I told Mr. Caldwell I would pay when I could. I never agreed to his interest rates. Pennsylvania law is quite clear. The terms were in the contract your husband signed. Caldwell's smile never reached his eyes. I've been searching for you for 6 months, Mrs. Always imagine my surprise when my associate spotted you boarding a westbound train. Anna's heart hammered against her ribs. She'd been so careful. Changed boarding houses 3 times. Left no forwarding address. How had he found her? I can't pay you, she said. I have nothing left. Caldwell's gaze moved past her to where Lily and Ben huddled together. His expression shifted, became something calculating and cold. You have the children. Healthy, young, capable of work. I know several families who would pay handsomely for... No. The word came out like a gunshot. Then return to Philadelphia with me. Work at my establishment until the debt is cleared. You'll have room and board. In a few years, perhaps, you'll have earned your freedom. Anna had seen Caldwell's establishment, a 3-story house on the edge of the city where debtors lived and worked under conditions that would make a prison warden blush. Women who entered rarely left. The debt never decreased, no matter how hard they worked. Caldwell always found new charges, new fees, new reasons to extend their servitude. She'd watched one woman, Sarah Brennan, waste away in that house. 3 years of labor for a debt of $100. By the end, Sarah couldn't walk without help. She died there, still owing money. Anna would die before she let that happen to her children. I won't go with you. Then you'll watch your children sold to labor contractors. Caldwell stepped closer, voice dropping to something almost gentle. Make the sensible choice, Mrs. Hayes. Come back to Philadelphia. Work honestly. Your children can stay with the church orphanage until you've paid your obligation. It's more mercy than you deserve. A voice cut through the tension like a blade through water. The lady said no. Everyone turned. A man stood beside a wagon 20 feet away, one hand resting on the harness of a massive bay horse. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with shoulders broad enough to block the wind. His coat was heavy canvas, dusted with snow and worn at the edges. Dark hair fell past his collar. His face was weathered, lined by sun and wind, with eyes the color of a frozen river. Anna had never seen him before, but something in those eyes, some deep well of old pain, made her breath catch. Caldwell assessed the stranger with the quick evaluation of a man used to sizing up threats. This is a private matter. Not anymore. The stranger's voice was low, controlled. He walked forward with the easy confidence of someone who'd never had to prove himself. Name's Jack Brennan. I own a ranch north of here. How nice for you. Caldwell's tone dripped contempt. But this doesn't concern you, Mr. Brennan. When a man threatens to kidnap children on Montana soil, it concerns me. Kidnap? Caldwell's laugh was sharp. I have legal documents. The courts of Pennsylvania. Don't mean a damn thing out here. Jack's eyes never left Caldwell's face. This is Montana territory. Your Philadelphia judgments ended at the state line. Anna stared at this stranger who'd stepped into her nightmare without invitation or obligation. Why would he help? What did he want? Caldwell's mask of civility slipped, showing the anger beneath. She owes me money. $200 in principal, $150 in legitimate interest. How much? Jack asked. $350. Anna saw Jack's jaw tighten, but his expression remained calm. He reached into his coat and withdrew a leather wallet thick with bills. Without looking away from Caldwell, he counted out money. I'll pay 200, the original debt, nothing more. You take it and leave town within the hour. The platform went silent except for the wind and the distant whistle of the train preparing to depart. Caldwell's face flushed red. You think you can just buy her? Who do you think you are? Someone who doesn't like bullies. Jack held out the money. 200, final offer. Or you can try explaining to Marshall Davis why you're attempting to collect an unenforceable debt through intimidation and threats against children. Hutchins shifted uncomfortably. Mr. Caldwell, I think you ought to take Mr. Brennan's offer. Montana courts don't look kindly on debt collectors from out of state. For a long moment, Anna thought Caldwell would refuse. His hand twitched toward his coat, and she wondered if he carried a weapon. But then he saw something in Jack's eyes, something that made him hesitate. Caldwell snatched the money from Jack's hand with barely controlled fury. This isn't over, Brennan. Mrs. Hayes is a liar and a thief. She told Mr. Garrett she was a widow without children. She deceived him just like she'll deceive you. Anna's face burned. It was true. She'd left the children out of her letters to William Garrett, terrified he'd refuse her if he knew. It had been desperation, not malice, but the shame cut deep nonetheless. Jack glanced at Anna, then back to Caldwell. Her past doesn't concern you anymore. The debt is paid. You're free to leave. Caldwell pocketed the money, but his eyes promised retribution. We'll see how long your charity lasts, Brennan. When you realize what she is, don't come crying to me. He turned and walked toward the boarding house at the edge of town. Anna watched him go, but a sick feeling settled in her stomach. Something about his stride, the set of his shoulders, told her this wasn't finished. She turned to Jack, who was watching Caldwell's retreating form with an expression she couldn't read. You didn't have to do that, Anna said. Her voice came out smaller than she intended. Jack looked down at Ben, still pressed against Anna's skirt. The boy was trembling, not just from cold, but from fever. Jack's expression shifted, became something Anna couldn't quite identify. Pain, maybe, or recognition. Your son is sick. He'll be fine. It's just... Anna couldn't finish the lie. Ben was getting worse. Jack knelt in the snow, bringing himself level with Ben. He placed one large, calloused hand against the boy's forehead. His frown deepened. He's burning up. When did the fever start? 2 days ago, on the train. Anna's hands twisted in her skirt. But he's strong. He'll recover. Not in this cold. Jack stood, his decision clearly made. You need shelter. The boy needs a doctor. I can't pay you. The words felt like glass in Anna's throat. I have $50 left. It's not enough to... I'm not asking for payment. Jack's eyes met hers, and Anna saw something there that made her breath catch. Understanding. The kind that comes from knowing loss intimately. My ranch is 12 miles north. I need a housekeeper for the winter. Cooking, mending, keeping the place from falling apart. I'll pay you $2 a week plus room and board. Come spring, you'll have enough to go wherever you want. Anna studied his face, searching for the trap. Men didn't help women without expecting something in return. She'd learned that lesson the hard way. Why, she asked. Why would you help us? Jack was quiet for a long moment, his gaze distant. When he spoke, his voice was rough with old wounds. Because 4 years ago, I wasn't there when my family needed me most. Today I'm here. That's all I can do. Anna didn't understand, but something in his words rang true. And Ben was getting worse. She could feel the heat radiating from his small body, even through layers of clothing. She looked down at her children. Lily stared up at her with those two old eyes, waiting for her mother's decision. Ben coughed a wet, rattling sound that made Anna's chest tighten. If you harm my children, Anna said, meeting Jack's eyes with all the strength she had left, I will kill you myself. Jack's expression didn't change, but something like respect flickered in his eyes. Fair enough. He moved to his wagon, returning with a heavy coat. Without asking permission, he wrapped it around Ben, the thick canvas swallowing the boy's small frame. Ben's eyes fluttered, confused and feverish. Up you go. Jack lifted Ben easily, cradling him against his chest like the child weighed nothing. Ben's head lolled against Jack's shoulder, too weak to protest. Jack helped Lily into the wagon next, settling her on a padded seat. Then he offered his hand to Anna. She hesitated only a moment before taking it. His palm was rough warm despite the cold. Strong. As Anna climbed into the wagon, she looked back at Blackthorn Ridge. The town huddled against the mountainside like something trying to shelter from the wind. Smoke rose from chimneys. Lights began to glow in windows as evening approached. At the boarding house, Vernon Caldwell stood watching them. Even from this distance, Anna could feel the weight of his stare. Jack followed her gaze. "He's not done, is he?" "No," Anna whispered. "He never is." Jack clicked his tongue and the horse began to move. The wagon lurched forward, wheels crunching through fresh snow. As they left the town behind, Jack spoke without looking at her. "We have 12 miles to cover before full dark. Storm's coming in tonight. Going to be rough." Anna pulled Lily close, feeling her daughter's small body pressed against her side. In the back of the wagon, Ben lay bundled in Jack's coat, his breathing labored and uneven. "Will we make it before the storm hits?" Jack's hands were steady on the reins, his eyes scanning the darkening horizon. "We'll make it, but it won't be easy." The road north wound through rolling foothills that gradually gave way to rougher terrain. Pine trees crowded close on either side, their branches heavy with snow. The temperature dropped as the sun sank lower, and Anna felt Lily begin to shiver. Jack noticed. Without a word, he reached behind the seat and pulled out a thick wool blanket, handing it to Anna. She wrapped it around Lily, then tucked the edges around herself. The gesture was simple, practical, but it was the first kindness a stranger had shown her in months. "How long have you lived out here?" Anna asked, needing to fill the silence with something other than her own racing thoughts. 4 years. Came out from Nebraska after—" He stopped, jaw tightening. "After my wife died." "I'm sorry." "So am I." The words carried the weight of something more than simple grief, something like guilt. They rode in silence for a while. The wagon creaked and swayed over the uneven road. Behind them, the sky darkened to deep purple, and the first stars appeared like chips of ice in the gathering dusk. Ben coughed again, the sound harsh and wet. Anna started to move toward him, but Jack spoke first. "Keep the girl warm. I'll watch the boy." Anna wanted to protest, but something in Jack's voice stopped her. It wasn't dismissive or commanding. It was the voice of someone who understood what it meant to sit vigil over a sick child. The wind picked up, carrying with it the smell of coming snow. Heavy, wet flakes began to fall, first a few, then more, until the air was thick with white. Visibility dropped to mere yards. Jack urged the horse faster. The animal's breath came in great plumes of steam. Its hooves pounded a steady rhythm against the frozen ground. "How much farther?" Anna had to raise her voice over the wind. 5 miles, maybe 6. Jack's eyes never left the road ahead. "We're going into the foothills now. Trail gets narrower." As if to prove his words, the path began to climb. Trees pressed closer. The wagon tilted as the road angled upward, and Anna gripped the seat with one hand while holding Lily with the other. Then Lily screamed. Anna's head whipped around. In the darkening trees, eyes reflected the last light, low to the ground, moving parallel to the wagon. "Wolves," Jack said calmly. "Pack's been hunting these hills for weeks. Are we in danger?" "Depends on how hungry they are." He reached beside him and drew out a rifle, setting it across his knees. "Keep the girl quiet. Movement and noise attract them." Anna pulled Lily closer, pressing her daughter's face against her chest to muffle any sound. She could feel Lily's heart hammering like a trapped bird. More eyes appeared. 4, then 6, then 8. The wolves paced them, ghostly shapes in the snow. One broke from the pack, moving closer to the wagon. Jack's hand tightened on the rifle, but he didn't raise it. "Why aren't you shooting?" Anna whispered. "Gunfire could start an avalanche. Mountains above us are heavy with snow." Jack's voice was level controlled. "We scare them off another way." He reached into a bag at his feet and pulled out a burning brand, already lit from the small firebox he kept in the wagon for emergencies. He thrust it into the air, waving it in a wide arc. The lead wolf stopped snarling. The others circled but kept their distance. Fire was the one thing they feared more than hunger. For agonizing minutes, man and beast regarded each other. Anna held her breath, feeling Lily's small body trembling against hers. Ben mercifully remained unconscious in his fever sleep. Then, as suddenly as they had appeared, the wolves melted back into the darkness. The eyes vanished. Only the wind remained. Jack lowered the brand, but kept it burning. "They'll follow for a while, making sure we're really leaving their territory." "Does this happen often?" "Winter makes everything desperate." He glanced back at Ben. "How's the boy?" Anna twisted to check. Ben's face was flushed, his breathing shallow. "The fever's worse." Jack's jaw clenched. "We need to move faster." He urged the horse into a trot, then a canter. The wagon bounced violently over the rough trail. Anna held tight to both Lily and the seat, her body jolting with each impact. The world became a blur of white and dark snow and trees rushing past. The trail narrowed further, hugging the side of a steep slope. To the left, rock face rose sheer and impassable. To the right, nothing but a drop into darkness. Anna couldn't see how far down it went, and she didn't want to know. Jack's hands were steady on the reins, his whole body focused on keeping the wagon centered on the path. One mistake, one slip, and they would plunge over the edge. Lily whimpered. Anna stroked her daughter's hair, whispering assurances she didn't feel. The worst part came where the trail crossed a section of exposed rock. Ice had formed in a slick, glassy sheet across the entire width of the path. The horse's hooves slipped, scrabbling for purchase. The wagon slid sideways, wheels spinning uselessly. "Hold on!" Jack yelled. Anna grabbed Lily with both arms, pressing her daughter against the seat. The wagon tilted, right wheels lifting off the ground. For a heart-stopping moment, Anna was certain they would tip over the edge. Jack threw his weight to the left. The wagon slammed back down on all four wheels. He leaped from the seat, landing in front of the horse and grabbed its bridle. "Easy, boy, easy." The horse's eyes rolled white with fear, but it responded to Jack's voice. Slowly, carefully, Jack led it across the ice. His boots found purchase in tiny irregularities in the rock. Each step was deliberate, measured. Anna watched, hardly daring to breathe. Behind her, Ben coughed again, a horrible racking sound. Finally, they reached solid ground. Jack climbed back into the wagon, his face grim. That's the worst of it. Ranch is 2 miles ahead. But Anna barely heard him. Ben's coughing had become continuous, each breath a struggle. She climbed into the back of the wagon, cradling her son against her chest. His skin burned through his clothes. "Ben, baby, stay with me." She rocked him, tears freezing on her cheeks. Jack looked back, his expression unreadable in the darkness. Then he did something that surprised her. He began to sing. The voice was rough, unpracticed, but there was something in it, a tenderness, that seemed at odds with his weathered exterior. "Hush, little one, the snow will pass. Morning comes and you'll be fast, safe and warm in Papa's arms. Nothing here will do you harm." It was a lullaby, simple and old. Ben's eyes flickered open, focusing on nothing. But his breathing eased slightly, the terrible coughing subsiding. Anna stared at Jack's back, questions burning in her throat. Who was this man? What had happened to make him so comfortable, singing to a dying child? The snow fell heavier. Wind howled through the trees like voices crying out. But Jack drove on, unwavering, until finally through the white curtain of the storm lights appeared. 2 of them steady and warm in the darkness. "There," Jack said. "Brennan Ranch." As they drew closer, Anna could make out shapes. A cabin solid and well-built. 2 barns flanking it. Corrals and outbuildings. Smoke rose from the chimney, a promise of warmth and safety. An old dog emerged from somewhere, barking joyfully. It was a border collie, gray around the muzzle, but still quick on its feet. The dog bounded through the snow, circling the wagon with excited yelps. "That's Scout," Jack said. "He's old, but he'll protect the children with his life." He pulled the wagon to a stop in front of the cabin. Before Anna could move, Jack jumped down and was at the back of the wagon, reaching for Ben. "Let me take him inside. Get the girl and follow me." Anna nodded, too exhausted to argue. Jack lifted Ben with infinite care, cradling the boy against his chest. He strode toward the cabin, kicking the door open with one boot. Anna helped Lily down from the wagon. Her daughter could barely stand, legs numb from cold and fear. Together they stumbled through the snow and into the cabin. Warmth hit Anna like a physical force. A fire roared in a massive stone fireplace. Oil lamps cast ghoulish light across a space that was surprisingly clean and organized. Shelves lined one wall filled with provisions. A large table dominated the center of the room, and against the far wall, a bed with thick quilts piled high. Jack had already laid Ben on the bed and was stripping away the boy's wet outer layers. His hands moved with practiced efficiency, checking Ben's temperature, his breathing the color of his lips and fingernails. "Pneumonia," Jack said. "Maybe worse. I need to ride to town, get Dr. Hewitt." "No," Anna rushed forward. "Don't leave us, please." Jack looked up at her, and in his eyes she saw understanding. He knew what it meant to be left alone with a dying child. "There's no choice. Without a doctor, the boy won't last the night." He stood already, moving toward the door. "Keep him warm. Use cool cloths on his forehead to bring down the fever. There's willow bark tea in the tin on the second shelf. Make him drink as much as he can. The storm. I've ridden through worse. Jack paused at the door, his hand on the frame. I'll be back, I promise. Then he was gone, back into the howling dark. Anna heard the hoarse whinny hooves pounding away into the distance. She stood frozen for a moment, overwhelmed by the silence he left behind. Then Ben coughed and training took over. Anna moved to the shelves, finding the tin Jack had mentioned. Her hands shook as she prepared the tea heating water over the fire. Lily huddled nearby, watching with wide, frightened eyes. Is Ben going to die? Lily whispered. Anna wanted to lie to offer comfort, but Lily had seen too much death already. She deserved truth. I don't know, sweetheart, but we're going to fight. We're going to fight with everything we have. She got the tea into Ben drop by drop. She stripped him down to his underthings and covered him with a single light blanket, fighting the urge to pile on warmth. The fever had to break, and heavy covers would only make it worse. Hours passed. The storm outside raged with increasing fury. Wind screamed around the cabin, rattling shutters. Snow piled against the walls. But inside, the fire held back the cold. Anna sat beside Ben, wiping his forehead with cool cloths. Lily had fallen asleep on a rug near the fire, Scout curled protectively around her small form. The old dog watched Anna with knowing eyes, as if he'd seen this vigil before. Ben's breathing grew more labored. His fever climbed higher. Anna prayed to a God she wasn't sure listened anymore, begging for her son's life, with words that felt hollow and desperate. She was so focused on Ben that she didn't hear the door open. Didn't realize Jack had returned until he was standing beside her, snow-covered and exhausted, with another man at his side. Dr. Hewitt was in his 60s with white hair and kind eyes that had seen a lifetime of suffering. He set down his medical bag and moved to examine Ben without preamble. Anna stood back, giving him space. She looked at Jack, who was dripping melted snow onto the floor. You came back. I said I would. Jack's voice was hoarse from cold. You could have died out there. But I didn't. He met her eyes and something passed between them. Understanding, maybe, or the beginning of trust. Dr. Hewitt worked quietly, listening to Ben's lungs, checking his vitals. After what felt like an eternity, he straightened. Pneumonia, as Jack suspected. Advanced, but not too far gone. The boy's young, strong. With proper care and medicine, he should recover. Anna's knees went weak. Jack caught her elbow, steadying her. What does he need? Jack asked. Rest, warmth, and these about. Dr. Hewitt produced bottles from his bag. Tincture for the fever, this one for the cough, and this to help him sleep. I'll need to check on him daily for the next week. I'll pay for your time, Anna said quickly. Dr. Hewitt waved a hand. Jack already took care of it. Now let's get some medicine into this young man. Together they administered the treatments. Within an hour, Ben's breathing eased. The terrible flush in his cheeks began to fade. He slipped into a deeper, more natural sleep. Dr. Hewitt packed his bag. I'll be back tomorrow afternoon. In the meantime, keep him warm and hydrated. If the fever spikes again, send for me immediately. Thank you, Anna whispered. You saved his life. The doctor looked at Jack. I think you have someone else to thank for that. Jack rode 8 miles through a blizzard at night to fetch me. That's not something most men would risk for a stranger's child. When the doctor left, Anna and Jack were alone save for the sleeping children. The cabin felt suddenly quiet, the crackle of the fire the only sound. Anna looked around properly for the first time. The cabin was immaculate, dishes washed and stacked, floor swept clean, everything in its place. This was not the home of a man who needed a housekeeper. You lied, she said softly. You don't need help with this place. Jack was quiet for a moment, staring into the fire. No, I don't. Then why offer me work? Because you needed it. Because your boy was chinge. Because... He stopped, struggling with words. Because I know what it's like to be desperate and alone with no one to turn to. Anna studied his profile in the firelight. The strong jaw, the lines around his eyes, the way he held himself like a man carrying a weight too heavy to set down. Who did you lose? Jack's hands clenched into fists. For a long moment she thought he wouldn't answer. Then in a voice barely above a whisper he spoke. My wife, Margaret, and our son Thomas. He would have been 5 this spring. The same age as Ben, understanding, crashed over Anna like cold water. What happened? I was gone. Buying cattle 3 days ride south. A storm came up, delayed me 4 days. When I got back, his voice cracked. They'd frozen. Margaret tried to keep the fire going, but the wood ran out. She died holding our son, trying to keep him warm with her own body. Anna's hand went to her mouth. Jack, I'm so sorry. I should have been here. Should have left more wood. Should have checked the weather. Should have. He stopped, jaw clenched so tight Anna could see muscles jumping. I failed them. I won't fail anyone again if I can help it. Anna understood now. Why he'd helped. Why he'd risked the storm for Ben. He was trying to save the family he'd lost. She wanted to tell him it wasn't his fault, that he couldn't have known. But she understood guilt. It didn't listen to reason. Instead, she did something that surprised them both. She reached out and took his hand. His fingers were cold rough with calluses, but they closed gently around hers. Thank you, she said, for saving my son. Jack looked down at their joined hands. Thank you for letting me try. They stood like that for a while, two broken people, finding unexpected comfort in shared pain. Outside, the storm raged on. But inside, for the first time in years, neither of them felt quite so alone. Lily stirred in her sleep and Scout lifted his head. Jack gently released Anna's hand and moved to bank the fire for the night. You and the girl take the bed, he said. I'll sleep on the floor near the boy in case he needs anything. You don't have to. I want to. Jack pulled blankets from a chest. Besides, I'm used to the floor. More comfortable than you'd think. Anna was too tired to argue. She gathered Lily, who barely woke, and settled them both on the edge of the large bed, leaving room for Ben in the middle. Jack arranged his bedroll on the floor beside them, close enough to reach Ben if needed. As Anna drifted towards sleep, warm and safe, for the first time in months, she heard Jack's voice soft in the darkness. Anna, yes. What Caldwell said about you lying to Mr. Garrett, about not telling him about the children. That true? Anna's throat tightened. Yes, I was afraid he'd refuse me if he knew I had children. I was desperate. It was wrong, but You did what you had to do to protect them. Jack's voice held no judgment. Can't fault a mother for that. Tears slipped down Anna's cheeks. You don't think less of me. I think you're one of the bravest women I've ever met. He was quiet for a moment. Sleep now. Tomorrow we'll figure out what comes next. Anna closed her eyes, but sleep wouldn't come immediately. Her mind kept circling back to one question. Who was Jack Brennan really? And why did it feel like she'd known him longer than a single impossible day? Anna woke to the smell of coffee and bacon, sensations so foreign after months of deprivation that for a moment she thought she was dreaming. Pale morning light filtered through frost-covered windows, painting the cabin walls in shades of silver and gold. Lily still slept beside her, one small hand curled under her chin. But the space where Ben had lain was empty. Panic surged through Anna's chest. She sat up too quickly, the room spinning. Easy. Jack's voice came from across the cabin. The boy's right here. Anna's vision cleared. Jack sat in a wooden chair near the fire Ben cradled in his lap. The child was awake, pale but alert, sipping from a tin cup. Jack held him with one arm while his other hand steadied the cup, patient and unhurried. Mama, Ben's voice was weak but clear. Anna crossed the room in 3 strides, dropping to her knees beside them. She pressed her hand to Ben's forehead. Still warm, but nothing like the terrifying heat of last night. The fever broke around dawn, Jack said. He's been asking for water. Got some broth into him, too. I had soup, Ben said, a ghost of a smile on his pale lips. It was good. Anna's eyes burned with tears she refused to shed. Not yet, not while her son could see. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Jack carefully transferred Ben to Anna's arms. The boy felt lighter than he should, fragile as bird bones, but he was alive. He was awake. He was going to survive. Dr. Hewitt should be here around noon, Jack said, standing and moving to the stove. Said he wanted to check on the boy's lungs, make sure that they're clearing properly. Anna held Ben close, breathing in the warm scent of his hair. Over his head, she watched Jack move around the kitchen with practiced ease. He'd already made breakfast, she realized. The bacon was draining on a cloth. Fresh biscuits sat cooling on the table. Coffee steamed in a battered pot. This man who claimed to need a housekeeper had clearly been managing just fine on his own. Lily woke with a start, sitting up and looking around in confusion. When she saw Ben in Anna's arms, her face transformed with relief. "Ben's better. Ben's better," Anna confirmed. Lily scrambled out of bed and ran to them, throwing her arms around her brother with the fierce desperation of a child who thought she might lose him. Ben tolerated the embrace with the patience of someone too weak to protest. "Careful," Anna murmured. "He's still recovering." Jack brought plates to the table. "Figured everyone could use a proper breakfast. Been a rough night." The food was simple but well prepared. The biscuits were fluffy, the bacon crisp without being burnt. Anna couldn't remember the last time she'd eaten something that hadn't come from a street vendor or a charity kitchen. "Where did you learn to cook?" she asked. "Necessity. Can't afford to be useless when you live alone." Jack poured coffee for Anna, then milk for the children. "Margaret tried to teach me before she died. I wasn't a great student, but I learned enough to keep from starving." The mention of his dead wife hung in the air like smoke. Anna wanted to ask more, but something in Jack's expression warned her away from the subject. Some wounds were too fresh to probe even after 4 years. After breakfast, Jack showed Anna around the cabin properly. It was larger than it had seemed last night, divided into 3 main areas. The common room where they'd eaten held the kitchen, dining table, and fireplace. A bedroom opened off to the left, the one where Anna and the children had slept. And to the right, a door she hadn't noticed in the darkness. It was closed. Locked, she realized, seeing the heavy bolt drawn across it. "What's in there?" Anna asked. Jack's jaw tightened. "Storage. Nothing important." It was obviously a lie, but Anna had her own secrets. She could respect his. The rest of the tour was more pleasant. Jack had built the cabin himself over the course of 2 years, using timber from his own land. The furniture was handmade, sturdy, if not elegant. Everything had a purpose, a place. There was no clutter, no waste. It was the home of a man who'd learned to live with exactly what he needed and nothing more. Outside, Jack showed them the barns and corrals. The larger barn housed 6 horses, including the massive bay that had pulled the wagon through the storm. The smaller barn held tools, tack, and winter feed for the livestock. "You manage all this yourself?" Anna asked, watching Jack check the horses with the easy familiarity of someone who'd been doing it for years. "Most days, Tom Bridges comes up from his place to help with heavy work during spring and fall. But winter's quiet, just me and the animals." Lily had discovered Scout and was following the old dog around like a shadow. The collie seemed to understand the girl's need for something gentle and safe, moving slowly and allowing her to pet his graying muzzle. Ben sat on a hay bale wrapped in blankets, watching everything with the solemn attention of a child who just learned how precious life was. Jack knelt beside one of the horses, checking its hooves. "Once the boy's stronger, I can teach him how to care for the horses. If you're staying long enough, that is." Anna realized they hadn't discussed the actual terms of her employment. Everything had happened so fast, survival taking precedence over details. "About your offer," she began. "The housekeeping position. I want to be clear about expectations." Jack straightened, meeting her eyes. "I don't expect anything you're not comfortable giving. You work during the day cooking and mending and such. You and the children have the bedroom. I'll sleep in the perfect common room. Come spring, I pay you what I owe, and you're free to go wherever you want. And if I want to leave before spring..." Something flickered in Jack's eyes. Disappointment may be quickly hidden. "Then you go. I'm not holding you prisoner." Anna studied his face, looking for deception. She'd gotten good at reading men over the years. The ones who smiled too much were liars. The ones who promised too readily were fools. But Jack did neither. He simply stood there, waiting for her decision, with the same patient stillness he'd shown holding Ben that morning. "I'll stay," Anna said. "Through winter at least. But I work honestly. No charity. Wouldn't dream of offering any." The corners of Jack's mouth quirked up, the closest thing to a smile she'd seen from him. "You strike me as the kind of woman who'd rather chew through a leather strap than accept something for nothing." "You're not wrong." They shook hands on it, a formal gesture that felt oddly significant. His palm was rough and warm against hers. When he released her hand, Anna felt the absence of that warmth more than she wanted to admit. Dr. Hewitt arrived just after noon, riding a sturdy mule that looked as old and weathered as its owner. He examined Ben thoroughly, listening to his chest, checking his color, asking questions about his appetite and energy. "The crisis has passed," Dr. Hewitt announced, "but the boy needs at least 2 weeks of rest. No going outside in the cold, plenty of fluids, and good food. Keep him warm and quiet. I'll make sure of it, Anna promised. The doctor packed his instruments, then fixed Jack with a meaningful look. A word outside. The two men stepped into the cold afternoon air, leaving Anna with the children. She tried not to eavesdrop, but the cabin walls were thin, and the doctor's voice carried. Jack, I need to know your intentions here. My intentions, Jack's voice was guarded. That woman and her children. You bring them here, pay off her debts, risk your neck in a blizzard for a boy you just met. Folks in town are going to talk. Let them talk. I'm serious. People will assume she's your mistress, or worse, that you're taking advantage of a desperate woman. Anyone who knows me knows better. Jack's tone hardened. I'm giving her honest work for honest pay. Nothing more. And when spring comes, you just going to let her walk away. There was a long pause. When Jack spoke again, his voice was quieter, harder to hear. That's her choice to make, not mine. You're playing with fire, son. That woman's got a past. Caldwell made that clear. And he's not going to just disappear because you paid him off. I know. Because I saw the way he looked at her when he left town. That's not a man who accepts defeat gracefully. Anna's stomach clenched. She'd hoped that paying the debt would end it. But she'd known better, really. Vernon Caldwell didn't forgive slights, and running from him, making him chase her across state lines, that was more than a slight. It was a humiliation. When Jack came back inside, his expression was troubled. He caught Anna watching him and seemed to shake off whatever dark thoughts had been plaguing him. Doc says Ben's going to be fine. That's good news. The best. Anna hesitated, then plunged ahead. I heard what he said about Caldwell. Jack's jaw tightened. You don't need to worry about Caldwell. But I do worry. He won't forget this. He'll come back. If he does, he'll answer to me. Jack said it simply, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. You're under my roof now. That means you're under my protection. Anna wanted to argue that she didn't need protection, that she could handle Caldwell herself. But the truth was, she couldn't. She'd tried running, tried hiding, and he'd found her anyway. Maybe having someone willing to stand between her and that threat wasn't weakness. Maybe it was wisdom. The days that followed fell into a rhythm that was almost peaceful. Anna threw herself into work, determined to earn her keep. She cooked meals that were more elaborate than Jack's simple fare. She mended every piece of torn clothing she could find, her needle flying through fabric with the speed of long practice. She scrubbed floors that were already clean, organized shelves that were already orderly, and generally made herself as useful as possible. Jack watched her efforts with what might have been amusement, though he never said anything. He spent his days working the ranch, checking on livestock, repairing fences, chopping wood for the insatiable appetite of the winter fires. He moved through his tasks with the efficiency of someone who'd done them 1,000 times. Never wasted motion, never wasted energy. In the evenings, they shared the common room. Anna would teach Lily and Ben their letters and numbers by the firelight. Jack would work on various projects, mending tack or carving new handles for tools. They didn't talk much, but the silence was comfortable, not strained. Ben recovered slowly but steadily. By the end of the first week, he was strong enough to sit at the table for meals. By the end of the second, he was following Jack around like a shadow, asking endless questions about horses and cattle and how to tie different kinds of knots. Jack bore the attention with surprising patience. He'd answer Ben's questions with the same care he gave to everything else, demonstrating techniques and explaining the reasoning behind different tasks. Anna would watch them together and feel something twist in her chest. Ben had never known his real father. David had been kind but distant, more comfortable with books than children. But Jack engaged with Ben as if the boy's curiosity mattered, as if his questions were important. Lily was quieter, more reserved. She helped Anna with household tasks, learning to cook and clean with the solemn determination of a child trying to prove her worth. But Anna noticed how Lily watched Jack when she thought no one was looking, studying him, measuring him against some internal standard Anna couldn't guess at. One afternoon, while Jack was out checking traps and Ben was napping, Lily approached Anna with unusual seriousness. "Mama, is Mr. Brennan going to be our new papa?" Anna's hands stilled in the bread dough she'd been kneading. "What makes you ask that?" "Because he takes care of us like Papa David did, and he's nice to Ben, and he doesn't yell." Lily twisted her apron between small fingers. "I like him better than the other men." Anna's throat tightened. Lily had met too many men in their time running from Caldwell, men who'd offered help with expectations attached, men who'd looked at Anna with hunger and at the children with calculation, men who'd made it clear that a woman alone with 2 children was prey, not a person deserving respect. Mr. Brennan is a good man, Anna said carefully, but he's not going to be your papa. We're just staying here for the winter. Come spring, we'll move on. Where will we go? It was the question Anna had been avoiding. Where could they go? Back east was impossible. Caldwell's reach extended through most of the major cities. West meant uncertainty, new territories with their own dangers. North was Canada, but that required money they didn't have. South led to territories where a woman alone would be even more vulnerable. I don't know yet, Anna admitted, but we'll figure it out together. Lily nodded, accepting this non-answer with the resignation of a child who'd learned that adults rarely had real solutions. She went back to sweeping the floor, and Anna returned to her bread, but the conversation lingered in her mind like smoke. 3 weeks after they'd arrived, Jack announced he needed to make a supply run to Blackthorn Ridge. Winter's settling in hard, he said over breakfast. Need to stock up on flour sugar ammunition. Few other things. I'll be gone most of the day. Anna's stomach nodded. Is it safe for you to go to town? Safe as anywhere. Jack didn't meet her eyes. Why wouldn't it be? Because Caldwell might still be there, Anna thought. Because men like him don't give up easy. Because I've dragged you into something dangerous and I don't know how to protect you from it. But she said none of that. Be careful. Jack's eyes met hers, then in something passed between them. Understanding. Shared concern. Always am. He left just after dawn, riding the big bay. Anna watched from the window until he disappeared into the trees, then turned to face a day that suddenly felt much longer and emptier than usual. She kept busy. There was always work to do. She baked bread, scrubbed the already clean floors, mended socks that barely needed mending. Lily helped without complaint. Ben played quietly with the wooden animals Jack had carved for him. Scout dozed by the fire, occasionally lifting his head to check on the children before settling back into sleep. But Anna couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled over her like a cold blanket. She found herself checking the windows, watching the tree line for movement. Every sound made her jump. Every shadow seemed to hold threat. Mama, you're scared, Lily observed with the blunt honesty of children. I'm just worried about Mr. Brennan, Anna said. The roads can be dangerous in winter. He'll come back, Lily spoke with absolute certainty. He promised to teach Ben how to whittle. Mr. Brennan keeps his promises. Anna wished she had her daughter's faith, but she'd learned that promises were cheap and easily broken. Still, Jack had proven different from other men in so many ways. Maybe this would be another. The hours crawled past. Noon came and went. Afternoon shadows lengthened across the snow. Anna prepared dinner more to have something to do than from any real hunger. She kept glancing at the door, willing it to open. When it finally did, relief flooded through her so powerfully that her knees went weak. Jack stood in the doorway, snow dusting his shoulders, arms full of supplies. He looked tired but unharmed. Storm's rolling in, he said, kicking the door shut behind him. Barely made it back before the worst hit. Anna helped him unload. Flour, sugar, coffee, dried beans, ammunition for his rifle, a length of fabric that made her breath catch. It was a soft wool dyed a deep blue, beautiful and impractical and far more expensive than necessary. What's this? She asked. Jack wouldn't look at her. Thought you might want to make the girl a new dress. Hers is getting threadbare. It was true. Lily's dress had been mended so many times it was more patches than original fabric. But this gesture, this unnecessary kindness, made Anna's chest tight. You didn't have to do this. I know. Jack moved away, suddenly busy with putting supplies in their proper places. Just thought it might be nice for the girl. Anna ran her fingers over the soft wool. It had been years since she'd had fabric this fine to work with. She could make Lily a beautiful dress from this something that would keep her warm and make her feel pretty. The thought made her eyes sting with tears she refused to shed. Thank you, she whispered. Jack nodded, still not looking at her. There's more. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small wrapped package. He handed it to Ben, who accepted it with wide eyes. What is it? Ben asked. Open it and see. Ben's small fingers worked at the string. Inside was a jackknife, small and perfectly sized for a child's hand. The blade was folded safely away, the handle smooth and well-made. For whittling, Jack said. Figured you're old enough to learn. With supervision, of course. Ben's face lit up like sunrise. Really, my very own knife. Every boy needs a good knife. I'll teach you how to use it properly, how to keep it sharp, how to carve without cutting yourself. Jack knelt down to Ben's level. But you have to promise me something. Anything. This is a tool, not a toy. You only use it when your mama or I say it's okay. You keep it sharp and clean, and you respect what it can do. Can you promise me that? Ben nodded solemnly. I promise, Mr. Brennan. A good man. Jack ruffled the boy's hair, and Anna saw something in his face. A flash of pain there and gone so quickly she might have imagined it. That night, after the children were asleep, Anna found Jack sitting by the fire staring into the flames with an expression of such profound sadness that it stopped her in her tracks. Jack. He looked up, and for a moment his guard was completely down. She saw the full weight of his grief, raw and unhealed, despite 4 years passing. I'm sorry, he said. I should probably turn in. Wait. Anna sat down in the chair across from him. What happened in town today? Jack was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then in a voice barely above a whisper, he spoke. I saw Caldwell. Anna's blood went cold. Ergenbaum. Outside the general store, he was talking to 2 men. Rough-looking types, the kind you hire when you want something done that won't stand up to legal scrutiny. Jack's hands clenched into fists. He saw me, smiled like we were old friends. Then he pointed down the street toward the North Road. The road that leads here. He knows where we are. He's always known. Town, this small word spreads fast. Jack finally looked at her. I confronted him, told him the debt was paid, and he needed to leave you alone. What did he say? He said you owed more than money, that you'd humiliated him by running, that a man can't let that kind of disrespect stand without consequences. Jack's voice hardened. Then he had the gall to suggest that I didn't know what I was protecting, that you'd deceived me just like you deceived Garrett. Anna's face burned with shame. Jack, I never meant to. I know. Jack held up a hand. I told him I knew exactly who you were, a woman doing whatever it took to protect her children, and that if he had a problem with that, he could take it up with me. What did he do? Laughed, said I'd change my tune soon enough. Said that charity has a way of wearing thin when you realize what it's costing you. Jack stood and moved to the window, looking out at the darkness. He's not going to stop Anna. Men like him don't know how. Anna stood as well, their anger cutting through her fear. Then I'll leave. I'll take the children and go somewhere else. I won't let you get hurt because of me. Jack spun to face her, and the intensity in his eyes made her step back. You're not going anywhere. You can't want us here, not with this threat hanging over you. What I want is for you and those children to be safe. What I want is for Caldwell to get what's coming to him. What I don't want is to watch you walk out that door and know I let you face danger alone. Jack crossed the room until he stood directly in front of her. I failed to protect my family once. I won't make that mistake again. We're not your family. The words came out softer than Anna intended. We're strangers you took in out of pity. You stopped being strangers the moment I pulled Ben into my arms and felt his fever burning through him. The moment Lily looked at me like I might actually be someone worth trusting. The moment you... He stopped, jaw clenching. The moment I what? The moment you looked at me like I was still a man, not just a ghost living in a dead woman's house. Jack's voice dropped to barely a whisper. You don't know what these past 4 years have been like. Waking up alone, working until I'm too exhausted to think, going to bed and dreaming about the family I lost, then waking up and doing it all again day after day, waiting for it to hurt less, but it never does. Anna's throat constricted. Jack, when I heard Ben cough on that platform, when I saw you ready to give up your children just to keep them alive, something in me broke. Or maybe it healed. I don't know anymore. But I looked at that boy and I saw Thomas. I looked at you and I saw Margaret. Not because you're replacements. You're not. But because you reminded me that life doesn't have to be just survival, that there can be more. Tears streamed down Anna's face. We can't be your second chance. That's too much weight to carry. Then don't carry it. Just stay. Let me keep you safe. Let me be useful to something other than my own guilt. Jack's hands hovered near her arms, not quite touching. Please. Anna looked into his eyes and saw a man as broken as she was. Different wounds, different scars, but the same fundamental damage. They were both survivors of losses that should have destroyed them. Both trying to build something from the wreckage. Okay, she whispered. We'll stay. Jack's shoulders sagged with relief. Thank you. They stood there for a moment, close enough that Anna could feel the heat radiating from his body. Close enough that she could see the exact color of his eyes in the firelight blue, like deep water. Close enough that it would take almost nothing to close the distance between them. But Anna stepped back. Whatever this was between them, and it was too new, too fragile, and she had children to think about. She couldn't afford to make another mistake. I should check on Ben, she said. Of course. Jack moved away, putting space between them. I'll bank the fire. Anna retreated to the bedroom, her heart hammering. She checked on the children, both sleeping peacefully, then sat on the edge of the bed and tried to make sense of the emotions churning through her. She'd thought she was done with men. After David died and Caldwell had shown his true colors, she'd decided that being alone was safer. Men were either weak like David or predatory like Caldwell. There was no middle ground. But Jack was neither weak nor predatory. He was something else entirely. Strong but gentle. Capable but kind. Haunted but not broken beyond repair. And she was terrified of what that meant. The next few days were tense. Anna watched the tree line, constantly expecting to see Caldwell and his hired thugs emerging from the forest. Jack worked the ranch as usual, but she noticed he kept his rifle closer. Scout seemed more alert, barking at shadows. Nothing happened, but the waiting was almost worse than an actual attack. Then 4 days after Jack's trip to town, they woke to find 2 of the chickens dead in the coop. Their necks had been wrung, bodies left where they fell. Jack examined them with a grim expression. This wasn't a fox or coyote. Look at the marks. Human hands did this. Anna's blood ran cold. Caldwell, or someone he hired. Jack stood scanning the surrounding area. They came at night. Scout should have barked, but I didn't hear anything. Scout remained alert this time, growling low in his throat. Jack had kept the dog inside since the last poisoning attempt. Whatever Caldwell's men brought, Scout hadn't taken the bait. They came onto my property, poisoned my dog, killed my chickens. That's trespassing and vandalism. Marshall should be able to do something. If we can prove it was Caldwell. Who else would it be? Jack carried Scout into the cabin, settling him near the fire. I'm riding to town, filing a formal complaint with Marshall Davis. Let me come with you. No, I need you here with the children. Keep the rifle loaded. Anyone approaches who isn't me or the marshal, you shoot first and ask questions later. Anna wanted to argue, but she understood. The children needed protection, and she could shoot. Her father had taught her before he died, though she'd never pointed a gun at a person. Jack left within the hour. Anna locked the door behind him and positioned herself where she could watch both the approach to the cabin and the children playing near the fireplace. The hours crawled past with agonizing slowness. Every sound made her jump. Every movement in her peripheral vision set her heart racing. Ben and Lily sensed her tension and stayed quiet, playing subdued games that required no running or shouting. When Scout finally roused, groggy but recovering, Anna felt marginally better. The old dog might be slow, but his hearing was still sharp. He'd warn them if anyone approached. Jack returned just before dark, Marshall Davis riding beside him. The marshal was a stern man in his 50s, with iron gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. Mrs. Hayes, he greeted her with a tip of his hat. Jack tells me you've been having some trouble. Anna showed him the dead chickens, explained about Scout. The marshal examined everything with professional thoroughness. Could be vandalism, he said finally. Could be someone with a grudge. Hard to prove who without catching them in the act. It was Vernon Caldwell, Anna said, or men he hired. You got proof of that? Who else would it be? Marshall Davis gave her a look that was not unkind but not sympathetic either. Ma'am, I understand you've got history with Caldwell, but I can't arrest a man based on suspicion. I need evidence. So we're supposed to wait until he does something worse. I'll talk to him, make it clear that vandalism and trespassing won't be tolerated in my jurisdiction. But beyond that, my hands are tied. The marshal turned to Jack. You might want to consider posting a watch at night. If they come back and you catch them in the act, then we can make arrests. After the marshal left, Jack set about reinforcing their security. He moved Scout's sleeping area to inside the cabin. He checked and rechecked the locks on all doors and windows. He cleaned and loaded both his rifle and a shotgun Anna hadn't known he owned. "This is escalating," Anna said quietly, watching him work. "Soon it won't be chickens. It'll be the barn. Or the house." "I know." Jack's face was grim. "That's why we're going to be ready." That night, Jack insisted on taking first watch. He sat by the window with the rifle across his knees, eyes scanning the darkness. Anna tried to sleep, but couldn't. Every creak of the cabin settling made her start. Every gust of wind sounded like footsteps. Around midnight, she gave up and joined Jack by the window. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Too worried." They sat in silence for a while, watching the moon paint silver shadows across the snow. "Tell me about David," Jack said suddenly. Anna was surprised by the question. "Why about?" "Because I want to know. Because he was important to you. Because his children deserve to have someone remember him." Jack glanced at her. "Unless it's too painful to talk about." Anna considered. It had been so long since anyone had asked about David with genuine interest, rather than calculating what they could gain from the information. "He was kind," she said slowly. "Quiet. He loved books more than people, I think. When I met him, I had Lily. She was barely a year old. I was working at a dress shop, taking in extra sewing at night to make ends meet. David came in one day to buy buttons. Buttons. He was very particular about his buttons. Said the wrong ones could ruin a perfectly good coat." Anna smiled at the memory. "He came back every week for a month, of always buying something small. Finally, he asked if I'd like to have dinner with him. I said yes because I was lonely and he seemed safe. Not a love match then. No, but we respected each other. He knew about Lily, knew she wasn't his. He never asked who the father was. Just said that if I'd marry him, he'd raise her as his own. We could build a quiet life together. It seemed like more than I deserved at the time." "Why would you say that?" Jack's voice was sharp. "Why wouldn't you deserve a good life?" Anna hesitated. She'd never told anyone the full truth about Lily's conception. But sitting here in the darkness with Jack beside her and danger circling outside the words came easier than expected. "Lily's father was a man named Richard Ashford. He was a friend of my father's, a fellow Army officer. After my father died, Richard offered to help me settle the estate. I was 18, alone, grieving. I trusted him." Her voice went flat. "I shouldn't have." Jack's hands tightened on the rifle. "He forced you. He said my father would have wanted him to take care of me, that this was his duty." Anna wrapped her arms around herself. "I didn't understand what was happening until it was too late. When I realized I was pregnant, I went to him. He gave me $50 and told me to deal with it quietly. Said if I accused him of anything, he'd ruin what little reputation I had left." Bastard. The word came out like a curse. "I thought about ending the pregnancy. There are women who know how, but I couldn't do it. So I had Lily. And I loved her from the first moment. She wasn't a mistake or a shame. She was mine." Jack was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "That's why you're so afraid. It's not just about Caldwell. It's about men in general. Because the ones who should have protected you failed. Or worse." "Yes," Anna looked at him. "You're the first man in years who's helped me without expecting something in return. The first one who's treated my children like they matter. I don't know what to do with that." "You don't have to do anything. Just accept it." Jack shifted to face her more fully. "Anna, what happened to you was evil. What Ashford did, what Caldwell's doing now, none of it is your fault. You didn't deserve it then, and you don't deserve it now. How can you be so sure? Because I see who you are. A mother who'd die for her children. A woman who kept fighting even when everything was stacked against her. A survivor." His hand moved as if to touch her face, then stopped. "You're one of the strongest people I've ever met." Anna felt tears slip down her cheeks. "I don't feel strong. The strongest people never do. They just keep going because they don't know how to quit." They sat together in the darkness, and Anna felt something shift inside her. Not love, not yet, but the beginning of trust, the possibility that maybe, just maybe, not all men were monsters, that some could be gentle, some could be safe. Outside the wind howled, inside the fire burned low, and two broken people sat watch over the sleeping children, each keeping vigil against different demons, but united in their determination to survive. The attack came 3 nights later, just as Jack had predicted. Anna woke to Scout's frantic barking and the acrid smell of smoke. For a heartbeat, she lay frozen, her mind struggling to make sense of what was happening. Then Jack's voice cut through the confusion, sharp and urgent. Fire! Get the children out. Anna lunged from the bed, scooping up Lily with one arm, while shaking Ben awake with the other. Move, sweetheart. Now, Ben stumbled upright, still half asleep. Lily clung to Anna's neck, her small body rigid with fear. Anna grabbed the blanket from the bed and wrapped it around both children, then herded them toward the door. Jack was already there, rifle in hand, scanning the darkness outside. The barn! They set the barn on fire. Through the window, Anna could see flames licking up the side of the larger barn, orange and hungry against the black sky. The horses inside were screaming high-pitched sounds of pure terror that made Anna's blood run cold. Stay here, Jack commanded. Keep the children inside and away from the windows. You can't go out there alone. What if they're waiting? Then I'll deal with them. Jack's face was granite hard, but those horses will burn alive if I don't get them out. He was through the door before Anna could protest further. She watched him sprint across the yard, a dark figure silhouetted against the growing inferno. Scout bounded after him, barking warnings into the night. Anna pushed the children behind the heavy oak table and positioned herself where she could see both the door and the windows. Her hands shook as she picked up the shotgun Jack had left loaded by the fireplace. The weight of it was unfamiliar, terrifying. But she'd meant what she said. If anyone tried to hurt her children, she would pull the trigger. Mama, I'm scared, Lily whispered. I know, baby, but we're going to be brave, just like Mr. Brennan taught us. Anna kept her eyes on the windows, watching for movement in the dancing shadows cast by the fire. Through the chaos, she could hear Jack's voice calling to the horses, low and soothing, despite the danger. The barn door crashed open, and the first horse burst out, eyes rolling white with panic. Then another, and another. Jack moved between them with practiced efficiency, getting each animal clear of the burning structure. But the fire was spreading faster than Anna had thought possible. Within minutes, the entire barn was engulfed. The heat reached across the yard to where Anna stood by the cabin door. She could feel it against her face, could see embers flying up into the night sky like malevolent stars. Then she saw them. Two figures at the edge of the tree line, watching the destruction with satisfaction. Even from this distance, she could make out the expensive coat on one of them. Vernon Caldwell had come to watch his handiwork. Rage surged through Anna, hot and cleansing. This man had followed her across state lines, had threatened her children, had now tried to burn down the home of the only person who'd shown them kindness. And he stood there smiling as if this were all some grand entertainment. Anna raised the shotgun, sighting down the barrel. At this distance, she might not hit him, but she could scare him. She could show him that she was done running. Her finger tightened on the trigger. Anna, no! Jack's hand came down on the barrel, pushing it toward the ground. She hadn't heard him approach, too focused on her target. He was covered in soot, his face streaked with sweat despite the cold. Let me go, Anna said through gritted teeth. He did this. He's right there. I know, but if you shoot now, you'll be the one the marshal arrests. Jack's grip on the shotgun was gentle but immovable. Trust me, we'll handle this the right way. There is no right way. He'll keep coming until we're dead or destroyed. Then we make sure he can't come anymore. Jack finally succeeded in taking the shotgun from her trembling hands. But we do it smart, not reckless. Anna wanted to argue, but the fight drained out of her as quickly as it had come. She sagged against the doorframe, watching Caldwell and his companion melt back into the trees. They'd done what they came to do. For now, that was enough for them. The barn burned for another hour before collapsing in on itself, sending a shower of sparks into the night sky. Jack and Anna worked to wet down the surrounding buildings, making sure the fire didn't spread. By the time dawn broke gray and cold, nothing remained of the barn but smoking timbers and ash. Marshal Davis arrived mid-morning, brought by Tom Bridges, who'd seen the smoke from his ranch 5 miles south. The marshal surveyed the damage with a grim expression. This was deliberate, he said, crouching to examine the burn patterns. Someone used accelerant, kerosene most likely, poured it along the base of the walls and lit it up. I saw who did it, Anna said. Vernon Caldwell and one of his men. They were watching from the tree line. The marshal straightened his face, carefully neutral. You're certain it was Caldwell? I'd know that coat anywhere, and his build. It was him. Did you see him actually set the fire? No, but who else would it be? Marshal Davis sighed, removing his hat to run a hand through his graying hair. Mrs. Hayes, I understand your frustration, but I can't arrest a man for standing in the woods. I need evidence that ties him directly to the arson. She saw him. Jack's voice was tight with controlled anger. What more evidence do you need? A witness placing him at the scene with the accelerant, or better yet, catching him in the act. The marshal replaced his hat. I'll talk to him, but unless one of you can provide proof he lit the fire, my hands are tied. After the marshal left, Jack stood staring at the ruins of his barn. His face was unreadable, but Anna could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. I'm sorry, she said quietly. This is my fault. If I'd never come here. Don't, Jack's voice cut like a blade. Don't you dare blame yourself for what that bastard did. But he's doing this because of Bui to get to me. Jack turned to face her, and the intensity in his eyes made her step back. He's doing this because he's a bully and a coward who can't stand that a woman outsmarted him. That's on him, not you. Your barn is gone. Your livestock could have died, all because I brought my problems to your door. You didn't bring anything. I chose to help you. I chose to stand between you and Caldwell, and I'd make the same choice again. Jack moved closer, his voice dropping. Anna, 4 years ago, I lost everything because I wasn't there when my family needed me. For 4 years, I've lived with that guilt, wondering if I'd ever get a chance to do better. Then you showed up desperate and scared with 2 children who needed protection. You gave me a purpose again, a reason to be more than just a ghost haunting a dead woman's house. Anna's throat constricted. We're not your redemption, Jack. That's too heavy a burden. You're not my redemption. You're my choice. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cupped her face with one rough palm. I'm not trying to replace Margaret and Thomas. I'm trying to build something new. With you, if you'll have me. The confession hung in the air between them, raw and honest. Anna's heart hammered against her ribs. She should say no. Should remind him that she was damaged goods, a woman with a past that included assault and deception. Should point out that they barely knew each other, that attraction born of crisis rarely lasted. But when she looked into Jack's eyes, she didn't see pity or obligation. She saw genuine caring, respect, maybe even the beginnings of love. I'm afraid, she whispered. So am I. Jack's thumb brushed across her cheekbone. But maybe being afraid together is better than being afraid alone. Anna closed the distance between them, pressing her forehead against his chest. His arms came around her solid and warm. They stood like that for a long moment, drawing strength from each other while the ruins of the barn smoldered behind them. Ben's voice broke the spell. Mama, is everything going to be okay? Anna pulled back to see both children standing in the cabin doorway. Lily held Ben's hand, her face solemn with worry. They'd seen too much violence in their short lives. They deserved better. Yes, sweetheart, Anna said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. Everything's going to be fine. But even as she said it, she knew it was a lie. Caldwell wasn't done. This was just the beginning. The next 3 days passed in tense preparation. Jack rode to Tom Bridges' ranch and returned with reinforcements. Tom was a barrel-chested man in his 60s with a thick beard going gray and eyes that had seen their share of trouble. He brought his 2 sons, both in their 20s and built like oxen. You stood by me when the drought nearly broke me, Tom said, his handshake firm. Now it's my turn. These boys and I aren't leaving until Caldwell's dealt with. They also gained an unlikely ally in Ruth McAllister, the widow who ran the boarding house in Blackthorn Ridge. She arrived in a wagon driven by her hired man, bringing supplies and a sharp tongue. Heard Vernon Caldwell's have been making trouble, she announced, climbing down from the wagon with more agility than her 60 years suggested. Can't abide a man who threatens women and children. My late husband would have horsewhipped him. Ruth took over the kitchen with brisk efficiency, preparing meals for the growing number of people gathered at the ranch. She also brought news from town. Caldwell's still there, bold as brass, staying at the hotel, dining at the restaurant like he owns the place. But folks are talking. Word spread about what he did to his debtors back in Philadelphia. Some are saying the marshal should run him out of town. The marshal can't do anything without proof, Jack said. Then we get proof. Ruth's eyes gleamed. Men like Caldwell always make mistakes when they get overconfident. The next night they were ready. Jack positioned Tom and his sons around the property, hidden but watchful. Ruth stayed in the cabin with Anna and the children. Jack himself took up position in the loft of the smaller barn, the one that still stood with a clear view of the approaches to the ranch. Hours passed. Midnight came and went. Anna sat by the fire pretending to read, but actually listening to every sound outside. Ruth dozed in a chair, a pistol resting in her lap. The children slept in the bedroom, Scout guarding their door. Then just before dawn, it happened. Scout's low growl woke everyone. Jack's whistle came from outside, sharp and urgent. Anna grabbed the shotgun and moved to the window. 3 figures approached through the pre-dawn darkness. They moved with the confidence of men who thought they were unobserved, carrying cans that sloshed with liquid. Kerosene. "That's them," Anna breathed. Ruth was already at the door, rifle in hand. "Let them get closer. We need them caught in the act." The men reached the smaller barn and began pouring kerosene along its base. One of them struck a match. "Now," Jack's voice rang out. Light flooded the yard as Tom and his sons lit lanterns from their hidden positions. The 3 arsonists froze, caught in the sudden illumination like deer. "Don't move!" Marshal Davis stepped from behind the chicken coop, his own rifle raised. He'd been there the whole time Jack had arranged it. "You're under arrest for attempted arson." 2 of the men dropped their cans and raised their hands. But the third, a wiry man with a scarred face, made a break for the trees. Tom's younger son tackled him before he'd gone 10 feet, bringing him down hard in the snow. Marshal Davis began reading them their rights while Jack approached from the barn. Anna watched from the window, relief washing over her. They'd done it. They'd caught Caldwell's men in the act. But where was Caldwell himself? The answer came with a crash from the bedroom. Anna spun around to see the window shattered, cold air rushing in. A man's arm reached through, fumbling for the latch. "The children!" Anna screamed. She ran for the bedroom, but Ruth was faster. The older woman raised her rifle and fired the shot, deafening in the enclosed space. The arm withdrew with a howl of pain. Anna burst into the bedroom to find Lily and Ben huddled on the bed, eyes wide with terror. Scout stood between them and the broken window, hackles raised and teeth bared. Through the window, Anna caught a glimpse of Vernon Caldwell, stumbling back, clutching his bleeding arm. His face was twisted with rage and pain. "You'll regret this," he screamed. "All of you!" Jack appeared at the window, his rifle raised. For a moment, Anna thought he would shoot. His finger was on the trigger, his aim steady. But then he lowered the weapon. "Marshal," he called, "we've got another one out here." Caldwell tried to run, but Tom's older son emerged from the trees behind him. The young man was fast despite his size, and he caught Caldwell easily. Within minutes, Vernon Caldwell was on the ground, hands bound behind his back, cursing everyone within earshot. Marshal Davis surveyed his prisoners with satisfaction. "Attempted arson, conspiracy to commit arson, trespassing, and in your case, Mr. Caldwell, attempted breaking and entering. That's enough to hold you while I wire the federal marshal in Helena. I have a feeling he'll be very interested in those warrants from Philadelphia." Caldwell's face went white. "What warrants?" "The ones for fraud, extortion, and unlawful imprisonment. Turns out the federal government's been looking for you for some time now." The marshal hauled Caldwell to his feet with rough efficiency. "You should have stayed in Philadelphia, Caldwell. Out here, you're just another criminal." As the marshal led the prisoners away, Anna stood in the doorway with Jack beside her. The sun was rising, painting the snow in shades of pink and gold. The nightmare was over. Caldwell would face justice. Her children were safe. Jack's hand found hers, their fingers intertwining. "It's done. It's done." Anna echoed, hardly daring to believe it. Ruth emerged from the cabin, looking remarkably pleased with herself for someone who'd just shot a man. "Well, that was exciting. Now who wants breakfast? I imagine everyone's hungry after all that commotion." The gathered defenders laughed, the tension breaking like ice in spring thaw. Tom clapped Jack on the shoulder. Ruth started giving orders about who should help with what meal preparations. The world kept turning ordinary and beautiful. But for Anna, one question remained. What happened now? 2 weeks later, Dr. Samuel Hewitt rode out to the ranch. Anna had met him several times since Ben's recovery, and she'd grown fond of the kind doctor who'd saved her son's life. But today he wore an unusually serious expression. Is something wrong? Anna asked as she served him coffee. Not wrong exactly, just complicated. Dr. Hewitt glanced at Jack, who sat across the table. I have news about Vernon Caldwell. Anna's stomach clenched. Is he getting out? Quite the opposite. The federal marshal arrived from Helena yesterday. Caldwell's being transported back east to face trial. Between the charges from Philadelphia and the new charges here, he's looking at 20 to 30 years in federal prison. Relief flooded through Anna so powerfully she had to sit down. He's really gone. He's really gone, but that's not all. Dr. Hewitt pulled a document from his coat. During his interrogation, Caldwell confessed to some interesting things, including the fact that the debt he claimed you owed was largely fabricated. Your husband did borrow $200, but Caldwell falsified the interest rates and added phantom charges. The actual debt was paid off 6 months before David died. Anna stared at him. I never owed him anything. Not for years. He used the false debt as leverage to try to force you into working at his establishment. When you ran, it became about pride, about proving he could catch you. Dr. Hewitt slid the document across the table. This is from the federal prosecutor. A formal acknowledgement that you owe nothing and never did. You're free, Mrs. Hayes. Completely free. Anna picked up the document with shaking hands. The words blurred as tears filled her eyes. 4 years of running a fear of sacrificing everything to stay one step ahead of a man who'd been chasing a lie the entire time. Jack's hand covered hers. Anna. I'm free, she whispered. We're free. Dr. Hewitt smiled. There's more. The federal government is offering compensation to all of Caldwell's victims. It won't be much, maybe $100 or so, but it's something. $100, more money than Anna had seen in years, enough to start fresh somewhere, enough to give her children a real future. Thank you, she managed. Thank you for bringing me this news. After Dr. Hewitt left, Anna sat at the table holding the document like it might disappear if she let go. Jack sat beside her, quiet and patient. You could go anywhere now, he said finally. East, west, wherever you want. With that money and your freedom, you've got choices. I know. Anna looked at him, this man who'd risked everything for her. What do you want me to do? That's not my decision to make. Isn't it? You said you were building something new. With me. Was that just talk? Jack's jaw tightened. It wasn't talk. But I won't trap you here out of gratitude or obligation. If you want to leave, I'll help you. If you want to stay. He trailed off, unable or unwilling to finish the sentence. Anna stood and walked to the window. Outside, Lily was teaching Ben how to gather eggs from the chicken coop. Both children were laughing, their faces bright with the kind of carefree joy she'd thought they'd never experience again. Scout supervised from nearby, his tail wagging. This place had given them safety, warmth, a chance to be children instead of refugees. And Jack had given them something even more precious, the knowledge that not all men were monsters, that some could be trusted, that some would keep their promises. I need to tell you something, Anna said, turning to face Jack. About Lily. Jack's expression didn't change. I'm listening. Anna had planned this speech a dozen times in her head, but now that the moment was here, the words came out stumbling and uncertain. She told him about Richard Ashford, about the assault, about discovering the pregnancy. She told him about her shame and fear, about nearly giving Lily away, about David's unexpected kindness in accepting them both. When she finished, Jack was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood and crossed to her. Thank you for trusting me with that. His voice was gentle, but it doesn't change anything. How can it not? I'm not the virtuous widow you thought I was. I'm damaged, used. And Lily is a smart, brave little girl who deserves to grow up knowing she's loved and valued. Jack's hands settled on Anna's shoulders. What happened to you was evil, Anna, but it doesn't define you. You're not damaged. You're a survivor. And Lily isn't a mark of shame. She's proof that even the worst things can be transformed into something beautiful. Anna's composure cracked. She'd held herself together through so much, been strong for so long. But Jack's words, his acceptance, broke through her defenses. She collapsed against his chest, sobbing with a mixture of grief and relief. Jack held her, one hand stroking her hair, while he murmured wordless comfort. He didn't try to shush her, or tell her everything was fine. He just let her cry, offering nothing but steady presence. When the storm passed, Anna pulled back embarrassed. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to." "Don't apologize for feeling." Jack wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb. "You've earned the right to cry." Anna looked up at him, this quiet cowboy who'd somehow become essential to her existence. "Jack Brennan, are you asking me to marry you?" Jack's expression shifted, became something vulnerable and hopeful. "I'm asking if you'd consider it, not because you owe me, not because you need protection, but because I love you, Anna Hayes. I love your strength and your determination. I love the way you fight for your children. I love the person I am when I'm with you. If you'll have me, I want to spend whatever time I have left on this earth building a life with you." Anna's heart swelled. She'd thought she was done with love, with trust, with hope. But standing here in Jack's arms with her children playing in the yard outside, she realized she'd been wrong. Love wasn't about forgetting the past. It was about choosing a future despite it. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I'll marry you." Jack's face transformed. He lifted her off her feet, spinning her in a circle before setting her down gently. Then he kissed her soft and reverent, like she was something precious. When they broke apart, both were smiling. "We should tell the children," Anna said. "Together, together." They walked outside, hand in hand. Lily saw them first and came running, Ben stumbling after with Scout at his heels. "What's happening?" Lily asked, eyes darting between the adults. Jack knelt down to the children's level. "How would you two feel about staying here, not just for the winter, but for always?" Ben's eyes went wide. "Really, we get to stay. If you want to, your mama and I are going to get married. That means I'll be your stepfather. You can call me Papa if you'd like, or Jack, or whatever feels right. But either way, you'll be part of this family." Lily studied Jack with that serious, measuring look she'd inherited from her mother. "Will you take care of Mama and Ben and me?" "With my life," Jack promised. "I'll protect all of you, feed you, keep you warm and safe, and I'll do my best to make you happy." "What if you leave us like Papa David did?" Jack's expression grew grave. "I can't promise I'll never die, Lily. Nobody can promise that. But I can promise that as long as I'm alive, I'll never leave you on purpose. I'll always come back." Lily considered this, then nodded. "Okay, you can marry Mama." Ben launched himself at Jack, wrapping small arms around the man's neck. "Papa?" Jack caught him easily, then opened his other arm to include Lily. Anna watched her children embrace this man, who'd become their protector, their provider, their father in all the ways that mattered. "What about you?" Jack asked, meeting Anna's eyes over the children's heads. "Any second thoughts?" "Not a single one," Anna said, joining the embrace. The wedding took place 3 weeks later at the ranch. Father Patrick Donnelly came from Blackthorn Ridge to perform the ceremony. Ruth McAllister brought the blue wool fabric Jack had bought, now transformed into a beautiful dress for Anna and a matching one for Lily. Dr. Hewitt stood as witness, along with Tom Bridges and his family. It was a simple ceremony held in the cabin's main room with the winter sun streaming through the windows. Anna wore the blue dress with wildflowers in her hair that Lily had picked. Jack wore his best shirt freshly pressed, his hair trimmed and beard neatly groomed. Father Donnelly spoke about love and commitment, about building a future from broken pieces, about the courage it takes to trust again. But Anna barely heard the words. She was too focused on Jack's face, on the way he looked at her, like she was something miraculous. When it came time for vows, Jack spoke first. "Anna, I promise to stand beside you in every storm, to protect you and your children with everything I have, to never let you face the cold alone. You gave me a reason to live again. Now I give you my life for as long as we both shall breathe." Anna's turn. She'd practiced what to say, but in the moment only simple truth remained. "Jack, you showed me that not all men are cruel, that some can be gentle, that some will keep their promises. I promise to build this life with you, to work beside you, to trust you with my heart even though it's been broken before. You're not my savior, you're my partner, and I'll be yours from this day forward." Father Donnelly pronounced them husband and wife. Jack kissed Anna gentle and sweet, while their guests cheered and Lily and Ben jumped with excitement. The celebration afterward was modest but joyful. Ruth had prepared a feast. Tom brought whiskey. Someone produced a fiddle, and there was music and dancing in the cabin's cramped space. For a few hours, the harsh Montana winter stayed outside, and inside there was only warmth and laughter. As evening fell and their guests began to leave, Jack and Anna stood on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. The children were inside with Ruth, who'd volunteered to watch them for the evening. "Do you have any regrets?" Jack asked. "Not one." Anna leaned against his shoulder. "Though I never imagined my life would turn out like this." "Neither did I. After Margaret died, I thought I was done, that I'd just work the ranch until I died, and that would be it. No future, no hope, just existence. And now I have everything I thought I'd lost. A wife, children, a reason to wake up in the morning. That's not just habit." Jack pulled her closer. "You gave that to me, Anna. You and those kids brought my house back to life." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge one by one. Scout dozed at their feet. From inside came the sound of children's laughter. "Jack," Anna said after a while. "Yes. The locked room, the one you wouldn't let me in. Are you ever going to tell me what's in there?" Jack tensed, then relaxed with a long exhale. "It's time you saw it, I suppose. Come on." He led her inside and to the door she'd only glimpsed before. The heavy bolt slid back with a metallic scrape. The door opened with a creak of hinges that hadn't been used in years. Inside was a shrine to Jack's lost family. A rocking chair sat beside a small cradle, both perfectly preserved. A woman's dress hung on the wall, pale blue with lace at the collar. Photographs in simple frames showed a younger Jack with a beautiful dark-haired woman, her hand resting on her pregnant belly. On a shelf sat a wooden bird, half-carved, the tools beside it exactly where they'd been left 4 years ago. "This was their room," Jack said quietly. "Margaret and Thomas. I couldn't bring myself to change it after they died. Couldn't pack it away, couldn't give it away. So I locked the door and pretended it didn't exist." Anna moved to the cradle, running her fingers along the smooth wood. Jack had built this with his own hands, pouring love and hope into every joint. "What do you want to do with it?" she asked. Jack looked around the room and Anna saw him wrestling with old ghosts. Then his expression cleared, decision made. "I want to give it to our children. The cradle can be used again when the baby comes. The rocking chair can go in the main room. The dress," he touched the fabric gently. "Margaret would want it used, not locked away, gathering dust." "Baby?" Anna turned to stare at him. "What baby?" Jack's smile was soft. "The one I'm hoping we'll have. Maybe more than one if we're blessed. This house needs children. It needs life." Anna felt tears prick her eyes again. She seemed to cry a lot these days, but they were good tears, healing tears. "We'll fill this house with life," she promised. "We'll make it so full of joy that the sadness can't find room to settle." Together they began the process of reclaiming the room. The cradle moved to the bedroom, the rocking chair to the hearth. The dress went into a trunk, carefully preserved for a daughter who might someday wear it. And the wooden bird, still unfinished, Jack placed on the mantel. "I'll finish it, someday," he said, "when I'm ready." That night, after Ruth had left and the children were asleep in their room, Jack and Anna sat before the fire in the rocking chair, her head on his shoulder, his arms around her waist. "Tell me something," Anna said. "That lullaby you sang to Ben that first night, where did you learn it?" "My mother used to sing it to me. Then I sang it to Thomas the few months we had him." Jack's voice roughened. "I haven't sung it since he died. Until Ben. Something about that boy's fever, the way he looked so small and fragile, it just came out. It was beautiful. Sad, but beautiful. Like most things worth having." Jack pressed a kiss to her hair. "You're beautiful, Anna Brennan." Anna smiled at her new name. Anna Brennan. It fit better than she'd expected, like a coat size just right. "What are you thinking?" Jack asked. "That a year ago I was desperate and alone, willing to marry a stranger just to survive. And now I'm here, married to a man I actually love, with my children, safe in a future that doesn't terrify me. It seems impossible. The best things usually do." They sat in peaceful silence, watching the fire burn down to embers. Outside, the Montana winter continued its relentless assault, but inside they were warm. Inside they were safe. Inside, against all odds, they were home. Months passed. Spring came slowly to Montana, the snow retreating inch by stubborn inch. Anna's belly grew round with new life. Ben learned to ride and care for the horses. Lily helped plant a garden that would feed them through the next winter. Scout, despite his age, bounded around like a puppy whenever the children played. Jack rebuilt the barn that had burned this time with help from Tom and his sons and half a dozen other neighboring ranchers who'd heard about his stand against Caldwell. The new structure was larger, sturdier, built with the kind of care that comes from knowing how precious shelter can be. In June, Anna gave birth to a daughter. The labor was hard but quick, with Ruth and Dr. Hewitt in attendance. When Jack held his daughter for the first time, his hands shook with wonder. "What should we name her, Rich?" Anna asked from the bed, exhausted but glowing. Jack looked at the tiny face, then at Anna, then at Lily and Ben, who were peeking around the door frame with wide eyes. "Margaret," he said. "Margaret Anna Brennan, if that's all right with you." "It's perfect." Little Margaret was followed 2 years later by a son they'd named Thomas David, honoring both of their pasts while building their future. The cabin grew to accommodate the growing family, rooms added on with the same care Jack had put into everything he built. Anna often thought about the journey that had brought her here, the desperation at that frozen train platform, the terror of Ben's illness, the courage it took to trust Jack when everything in her experience said men couldn't be trusted, the slow blooming of love in soil that had seemed too frozen to support life. She thought about Vernon Caldwell, too rotting in a federal prison cell. She didn't hate him anymore. Hatred required energy she'd rather spend on living. But she was grateful for the justice that had finally caught up with him, for the closure that let her move forward without looking over her shoulder. One evening when little Margaret was 3 and Thomas still toddling, Anna stood on the porch watching the sunset. Jack came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, his chin resting on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "About how I came here as a mail-order bride who never met her a groom, and somehow ended up with more than I ever dared to dream. I think about that too, how I was just surviving, going through the motions. Then you showed up in the middle of a blizzard and gave me a reason to live again." Anna turned in his arms to face him. Gray touched his temples now, and lines around his eyes spoke of years spent squinting into the sun. But he was still her, Jack, steady and strong and gentle. "Do you ever miss them?" she asked. "Margaret and Thomas." "Every day." Jack was honest as always. "But not the way I used to. Now when I think of them, I can smile. I can remember the good without being crushed by the bad. You gave me that. You and our children." Inside, they could hear Lily reading to her younger siblings, her voice clear and patient. Ben was helping with evening chores, nearly as tall as his stepfather now. The house was full of noise and life and love. "We did good," Anna said. "We did better than good. We did impossible." Jack kissed her forehead. "The widow who arrived in winter brought spring with her." Anna laughed. "That's terribly poetic for a cowboy. Ruth's been lending me books, says I need to expand my mind." "God help us all." They stood together as the sun sank below the horizon, painting the Montana sky in impossible colors. Behind them, the house glowed with lamplight. Around them, the ranch thrived. Before them stretched years of ordinary days made extraordinary by love. Anna Hayes Brennan had traveled a long way from that desperate moment on the train platform. She'd been broken and rebuilt, terrified, and made brave alone and surrounded by family. The journey had nearly destroyed her a dozen times over. But standing here in Jack's arms with her children's laughter echoing from the house, she knew it had all been worth it. Every mile, every tear, every moment of fear and doubt had led her exactly where she needed to be. Home.